Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour Podcast. I am your host, Dairy Gal Val, or Val Levine, and I am joined today by the one and only Katie Dotterer. Katie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So Katie and I have known each other for probably 4 to 5 years now. Was probably when we started interacting with each other between social media, and I actually ended up taking two of Katie's awesome farm Spanish courses because when you're a farmer, a lot of times Spanish comes in very handy. And Katie, over the years, just ended up being one of those people that I've always connected with. We chat a lot, and I've actually only met her in person once. So it's like crazy to think that I feel like we've known each other forever, but we've only actually met in person once this past summer. So we're definitely going to have to change that again soon. Um, but anyways, so Katie, if you want to just say a little bit about yourself, I've already obviously alluded to the farm Spanish, but
That's okay. Yeah, so I'm Katie Dotterer. You tell me when you want me to go into the background about my upbringing on the
you're good.
farm, but I currently live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Everybody asks me why, which maybe we'll get to it later when we get to that part of my story, but I've been here for about almost 3 years, to be honest, which is crazy. And the coolest thing is I live on a battlefield, and I'm a big history nerd. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I do. I absolutely love history. And I was a dairy farmer up until almost about 3 years ago. And we'll get into that a little later, but it's been a good move for me. And as you said, I teach my Spanish for agriculture courses, and I never thought it would be like a full-time career, but here I am doing it. And it was a side hustle to start with. And like like you, I started out as an advocate for agriculture, had a big following, still kind of do, but um we talk about all the time. We talk about the gap between consumers and farmers, right? And that is still there, and unfortunately it gets bigger every year, but we also had a gap within agriculture that I saw, which was between Spanish speakers and non-Spanish speakers. And it wasn't just a language gap, but it was also the cultural gap. And have always loved Spanish. I love the language, I love the culture. And I actually started learning in third grade. I was super excited to take it in high school. Took 2 years and hated it. My teacher was a great person, but wasn't a great teacher. So I lost the love for it then. So fast forward, it wasn't until I graduated high school. I took a year off between high school and college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I worked on my family farm for a year. And that's when my family first started hiring Spanish speakers to join our milking team. And I'll never forget his name. Octavio was our first Spanish speaker. And we milked the night shift together that summer. And it just reignited my passion for the language. And fast forward,
So
I
pause you. I'm going to pause
yeah.
you right there. How you remember your first Spanish speaker's name?
Hmm.
Our first Spanish speaker was when I was about 8 years old, and his name was Hector. And 8-year-old me, I was just, if I wasn't at school, I was in the barn, and we had a tie stall at that point. And Hector and I, we were like the best of buddies. And we would go around, and I would help him with his English, and he would teach me Spanish. And we just always had so much fun with it.
Hmm.
Um, and he actually is who ignited my love of attempting to speak Spanish all those years ago. So I just, when you say that you remember that, it's funny because I automatically was like, oh my gosh, Hector. And he's
Yeah.
actually still a friend of our families. He does not work for us anymore. He hasn't worked for us in some time, but he still comes and visits, every other year or once a year, and always comes. And it's just like family returning to see us. So it's really great.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like a very similar story. And it's not just like when people we talk about learning the language, it's building those relationships, right? Like, and I still talk Cavio. I've seen all three of his kids, grow up. So it's a very rewarding experience if we just open our minds up to new things like such as a language and learning about somebody else's culture. So anyway, that is what I do right now. I teach Spanish for agriculture. I am currently working on English as a second language classes. I translate on the side. I advocate for agriculture. So sometimes I work on contract with public relations companies throughout the US to advocate for ag. And that's just like a sample of what I do, but I absolutely love what I do for a living.
And the cool part is that you have over the years gotten into Spanish, not just like dairy farmer Spanish, but you've gotten into other different sectors of agriculture, I believe poultry and swine.
Yep, exactly. Poultry and
So
swine. And I have so many other industries coming at me, like the mushroom industry. I don't know if you know this, but Pennsylvania, I believe
yes,
we might be #1 in mushroom production.
yep,
I am in orchard country here in Adams County, so I've had produce growers come at me, but what people don't realize is it takes a long time to write the curriculum. So the curriculum that you saw in both the classes that you took, I write all of this from scratch. And so, as you know, and I'll just tell your listeners, if you take the dairy class, your first vocab list, you're learning how to say cow, heifer, gate, bucket, things that are going to be applicable that you're going to use every day. So that's the niche, I guess, that I've built for myself, and it's going really well. And I just opened registration for winter, so I always get nervous before.
good. Well, this will be perfect timing. So if you're listening to this and you have thought about taking some type of a Spanish course or just want to brush up on your Spanish, I highly recommend Katie's courses. We'll chat about them at the end. So if you are interested, be sure to stay tuned till the end and we will chat about how you can sign up or how you can be a part of Katie's courses. So I guess let's rewind. You were a dairy farmer, but you were also born and raised on a dairy farm. So I don't know if you want to go way back and talk about your family's dairy farm.
I'll just give you a snippet so I don't bore you. I grew up on my family's dairy farm in central Pennsylvania, so nobody knows the town of Mill Hall. So I tell people I grew up a half hour north of Penn State. None of us went to Penn State. Apparently it was too close to home. Nothing against Penn State. But I grew up a part of third generation. So my family, to give you an idea, they're milking about 1,000 cows 3 times a day, about 40 some employees. And if you would have asked me in high school, Katie, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I would have told you I'm going to come back to the family dairy and be part of that third generation. And I did. I was for about 2 years. But my dad had a rule that if any of us kids, I have a brother and sister, both younger, that if any of us wanted to return to the farm, we had to work elsewhere. And I don't care who you are, what industry you're working in, but if you've grown up on a family farm, this is a fantastic rule that I highly recommend everybody do. Because when you do that, when you work for somebody else, and my father knew this, you learn, like I learned real quick what it's like to not be the boss's daughter, right? To
Yes.
not have, yeah. So anyway,
So here's another good coalition, I guess, that we have. My dad has the same rule and made me go work for other people first too. So I feel that.
So I was actually, it's right next to me. It's weird that I ended up here, but I took a job. So I went to school. My first degree is in business management and marketing, and we had to do an internship. So of course I pick a dairy farm to intern at, and it was Mason-Dixon Farms here in Pennsylvania. And at that time, they were the largest dairy in the state, milking like 2,300 cows, but they had just put their brand new robot barn in. So they were one of the first to put like 500 cows on robots. So I was the robot barn manager when I was there. So I was there for a year. And it was so funny because as soon as the year date came up, my dad called and he was like, "Are you ready to come home yet?" I was like, "Dude, this was your role." So anyway, I had come home and I had met somebody there, and he later became my husband. But anyway, we went back to the dairy and he came with, and I was at the family dairy for about 2 years. Love my family, but found out real quick that we did not work well together. And my now ex wanted to farm on his own anyway. So that's what we did. We left that farm in 2009. I don't know if I need to remind anybody what the industry
Yes.
was like at 2009.
2009 was a tough year because that's the year I graduated college, and to find
Ooh.
a job in dairy in 2009 was a little tricky.
I bet. Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, it was the best time to buy cows because interest rates, I mean, so I was 23 when we started this venture. And while most of my friends were trying to get a loan to buy their first house, I signed a $300,000 FSA loan to buy 90 cows at like 1.8% interest. So that started, I went from being a third generation farmer to a first generation farmer. And from there, so I'm just gonna say, like I co-owned the farm. I was 50% owner this entire time. So we rented some facilities and then ended up buying a farm in Maryland, right over the border actually here. And so I was a first generation farmer for a total of 13 years. And when I left, we were milking about 420 cows twice a day. And I had always loved jerseys, always loved jerseys. And before my family was a closed herd, I would tell my uncle when he went to buy cows, I'm like, can you please just get one jersey? And he was like, no, they don't make you any money. Well, I had the last laugh because components. And anyway, I had almost all jerseys, which was very cool. It was like a dream come true. So that's my history of being a third and first generation dairy farmer.
Very good. And then you also worked, I believe you were a Spanish teacher also.
Yes, and anybody knows that works in dairy, most spouses have to work off farm, and I did both though. I pulled my weight on the farm no matter what anybody wants to say. Because I actually had to start part-time. There was too many chores at home to get done. So yeah, I taught in Frederick County. I taught in the middle school and high school. I only taught middle school 1 year, thank you, Jesus, because if anybody has a middle schooler, like, God bless you. It is a very, very hard age. I prefer the high schoolers, and I know a lot of people cringe, and I'm like, no, they're sassy, but I can sass them right back. And
See, thank you. That's when I substituted for a few years. I was all about substituting in the high school because I was like, I have elementary kids at home. I do not need to deal with the elementary kid like
yeah,
ugh,
I would
every
rather deal with sass than having to wipe your nose. Like,
yes. And
no,
I'm
thank you.
so good. I'm good at giving the sass back. So I'm
Yeah.
like all for it. Yep.
And I just have to say this. I always tell people, especially adults that have children, of these ages, a lot of people think that the younger ones need all this love, and then we kind of distance ourselves from high schoolers, and it's the complete opposite. Those high schoolers need the most love. They're trying to figure out who they are. And so the rewarding part for me was, I mean, yes, I love teaching Spanish. I also taught an ag class and a business management class. But the best part for me when I taught in the high school, and I taught there for about 4 years, was being the mentor to those kids, because it was a very inner city school. Like, it was such a big school. We had 5 principals at this school.
Yikes.
But the relationships that I got to build with those kids I miss it.
Yeah. It's such a rewarding job to be able to be such a shaping piece of these kids' lives, especially not knowing what backgrounds and families that they come from, being able
Right.
to, make a difference, show them that they can in fact be the best that they can be. And that's so important. So
Absolutely.
I feel that definitely. So okay, so you are on the farm and you're working part-time and you started your Spanish classes for farm Spanish in what year?
Oh goodness, that was because it started 2018. 2017
Okay.
was the worst year of my life. That's when things just started crumbling around me. Um,
Okay.
but I still started it. Like, I'm not one to wallow. Like, I'm like, okay, well, what can I do next? So I just dove
Yeah.
in.
Okay, so do you want to talk? You can go ahead and talk about whatever you're comfortable talking about.
Sure. So I'm just gonna start by saying that I don't like that divorce is taboo in our industry, right? Because I feel like, and I went through all this, people like threw the Bible at me and said, well, you didn't read this and that, and you got married for that. I'm like, listen, nobody gets married expecting to get divorced. I don't know anybody that does that. But things happen. Betrayal happens. People grow apart. I could make a list for you of the reasons why people get divorced, and people act like it's I mean, it's hard, right? And it's a big thing, but I hate that people just, like, I don't know, crawl away when big D word comes out. And it's like, for crying out loud, we need to talk about this, especially in agriculture, because in my opinion, because I've been through it now, I think divorce in agriculture is 10 times harder than it is if you're not in agriculture, right? Because in agriculture, we are not only married to a person, we are married to a farm, we are married to assets, we are married to land, the cows, so many things. And it is so hard to break apart from all of that. Whereas when you're not in ag, you usually just have the person and maybe an asset or two, like, I don't know, you like your car or your house, but ag is different.
It definitely is. You know, obviously not, I'm not speaking from experience, but I've, witnessed a lot of things. And, you want to make something really tricky, good, add a lifestyle, something that you've known forever.
Mhm.
And the change is just, it's not like you can just be like, okay, well, to heck with you. I'm going to go milk cows 20 minutes down the road in my
Yeah.
own farm. And I'm just going to start it myself and go for it. It's not that easy.
Mhm.
Um, but you want to make things, I mean, it's hard, especially which you don't have any children, but to go through something, tricky. It's probably just like if you were to throw children into the mix that just create a whole extra level of complexity that makes it 20,000 times harder. Um,
Absolutely.
I
Right.
definitely, yeah, I definitely get it. And you're not just a spouse, but you're a business partner and you have to split that business and that causes a lot of different challenges.
Oh yeah. And when I left people, and I still get it. Oh, she got away with all this money, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you have no idea. You have no idea what happened behind closed doors, barn doors, really. And I always tell people, especially when they want to start the rumor mill, there's three sides to every story. And it depends how you want to look at it. There is his, hers, and the truth, or his, hers, and God's. Again, you pick what you want to. Um, what we can do though is support people, and we can be there for them, and we can mind our own business. Also, I have also learned one of my favorite, I guess, quotes to about this topic is how is it? It's somebody's opinion of you is none of your business. So, okay. But anyway, and I won't go into the reasons or what happened. It was awful. I mean, I will say there was betrayal, and that's really hard to deal with. And especially again when you have the dairy, and I would, like, you brought up the kid thing, and yes, I don't have children, thank God I didn't have children throughout this. And but I think some people thought that this was just way more simple because we didn't have children, which is not true.
Oh, definitely not.
Those cows were my children, those
Yep.
my employees were family to me. And I I don't know what's worse, honestly, what was worse, leaving everything that I helped build 50%, or the people. Like, it tore me apart to walk away from the workforce, because our team, I mean, they'd been with us for over a decade. And anyway, um there was just a lot of how do I it's obviously difficult to talk about, right? Because I am trying to um stay classy. But anyway, sorry, going back to the kid thing, it doesn't matter if you have kids or not. It's still, how is it affecting you? And by the way, if somebody is going through something like this and you do have children, I've talked to so many people that have had children during a divorce, and the worst thing you can do is stay together for the kids.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, yes.
you think that you're doing the best you can, but the people, my friends that grew up like that, they're like, yeah, my parents, we just know, they stayed together for us. When we and kids know, kids are resilient, one, and kids actually are more intuitive than we give them credit for.
Oh, for
And
sure.
what you're actually doing is, if you are no longer in love with your spouse and you're constantly fighting, or maybe it's just a silent treatment all the time, you're not modeling a good relationship for them. So when they grow up and they get into their own relationship, they're going to think that what they grew up with is normal, and it wasn't. So it's just, I mean, I obviously, that's my piece of talking to my friends that had went through that, and every single one of them always said, I wish my parents would have gotten a divorce before they did.
Yeah.
So it's very hard. And so my life started falling apart in 2017, and like according to my peers in the industry, I kept it together pretty good because nobody knew what was going on. And but that goes back to agriculture, right? Like I can't tell you how much crap I've gotten over the years too before the divorce for not having children. And that's a very personal decision. But just because it's agriculture and we're supposed to have these quote unquote farm or picture perfect farm families, that doesn't fit everybody. So that's a whole nother story. Maybe do another podcast on that. But um getting to 2017 was awful. And so I didn't leave until January of 21. I tried my hardest. And I told myself, like I did counseling, and I'm still in therapy. I'm not ashamed to tell people that divorce will rip you apart. And it is up to you to take that into your own hands to heal yourself. But anyway, I stayed for 3 years, and I can't sit here and tell you that I regret doing that because in those 3 years, some cool things had happened, some opportunities and whatnot. But that was a long 3 years, and it was a very painful 3 years. But I just knew for myself that if this was going to end up in a divorce, that I didn't want to have any regrets. I didn't want to walk away saying, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. In my opinion, I did everything. I did everything that I could have. I sought the right people. I talked to my pastor. Um, Unfortunately, my family was not much help. I love my family, but nobody in my immediate family had ever gotten a divorce. So there was really no help there. And I felt very alone. And it wasn't until you get to a point, and if anybody is in especially an abusive relationship, and I'm going to pause here to tell you, abuse is not just physical. It can be verbal, it can be mental, and it can be financial. And in my opinion and experience, some of those hurt worse than the physical. So there's a lot of healing to do. And no matter if you're seeing somebody go through this and you know that, because there was a couple, I had like 3 good friends that could see this and they witnessed some things that I wish they wouldn't have, but they also understood a little more. And they told me, Katie, you need to leave. Katie, you need to get out. Katie, you need to go. Why are you still here? And they weren't in ag like I was, like they didn't own a dairy farm. I'm like, you don't understand. I can't just walk away from this. I can't do that. So sorry, what I keep going back to, if you see somebody going through this, don't keep telling them you have to go, because that person has to make that decision on their own. I had to make that decision on my own. And it was a huge breaking point for me. It was Christmas Eve of 2020 when I just knew, and I moved out 2 weeks later, and I never looked back, which in my mind, I'm like, nope, we're just going to do a separation. It'll be fine. And as soon as I got out, I just knew that I didn't want to live like that anymore. I had spent too many times on my kitchen floor, the bathroom floor. I don't know why it was those 2 rooms, but it was a lot. I laugh at it now, but it wasn't obviously funny then. And so just know that nobody can tell you when to go or what to do. It's going to come at some point.
Yeah. It's definitely got to be something that you in your heart feel, because you know that's that's just an insurmountable thing in your life to have to go through and deal with, and you need to be ready for it. But just know, to people that are listening, if you need help or you need someone to tell you that it is okay and there is a light at the other end of the side, or at the other end of the tunnel, oh my gosh, just know that there are people out there that will talk to you, that will help you, that will tell you it will be okay. And that's so important. And just knowing that there is someone there for you is just, I'm sure it's just a huge help.
It is. And I had friends that they would listen to me, and after a while, I'm like, I know I sound like a broken record. But they were still there for me. They still listened to me. And I have had complete strangers, especially women, reach out to me on social media. And I don't air my dirty laundry. I share, little quips or whatever on my social channels, but it's been just enough for women to reach out. And I'm okay with, I keep everything anonymous. I don't say anything to anybody because I know how it feels. I've been there. And it hurts my heart when these women reach out because they have nowhere to go. And especially in agriculture, again, we don't have a very good support system because God forbid we even get divorced in this industry or even talk about it. And I don't know that I don't want to, I'm not going to talk about obviously some of the women that have reached out because some of them have been successful and are now happy and some are just still struggling, and I pray for them daily.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing to be in a situation where you're struggling day to day, and no matter who you are, you deserve to be happy, and you
Mhm.
deserve to have that freedom of your person, even just not to be tied down. I have seen so many crappy relationships, and I mean, I'm obviously blessed that I am not in one of those, but I've seen so many people and I've been close to people that have gone through a lot of stuff, and it's just it's a tough thing, and you have to do things for you, and you have to, it could get really hard when you do make that step, but just knowing that, once you hit that bottom, you're going up. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to hit the bottom.
There
And
is no other way but up once you hit bottom.
yep.
Yeah.
Once it's like jumping into a really deep pool, and once you hit the bottom, you're going up. You're on the bottom. The way up might be long, and it might be very trying and hard and difficult, but there is sunshine and there is air on the top, and that is what is important to keep in mind while you're going through something like that.
So when I
Accurate?
moved, yes, yes, absolutely. um, I think I hit rock bottom a couple times actually before I started to rise. And I remember when I moved out, first he didn't believe me that I was going to do it. And I just did it. I had to. And I only took the necessities because in my mind, this was just going to be a separation. This is going to work out. He's going to know I'm serious. And some other things happened that when I was out, I was like, I can't go back there. I didn't realize how sick I was making myself too. Um, I had gotten down to like 110 pounds. I'm 5'6". When I look at pictures, I was emaciated. Like it was bad for me. My body reacts to stress. I just don't eat. I don't have an appetite. And I wasn't hardly eating at all. I actually remember these protein balls, which to this day, they still make me think of it. They're good for you, but that's all I lived on for a while because I just didn't have an appetite to eat, better food. So anyway, when I moved out, I had no place to go. And I remember calling a friend, and long story short, I lived in her basement for a couple months. I mean, it was a nice basement, so I don't want people to think it's a dungeon or anything, but she had her own, stuff going on in life, and I just needed a safe place to go. And so I went, and I was still teaching. So this is 2021, January 2021, and I was still teaching. We did this stupid hybrid thing. It was still during COVID. So I was going into the high school to teach. I was teaching my Spanish classes at night. Like I've had when the news of the divorce broke, I had students reach out to me and they're like, I had no idea. I'm like, cool, I'm
Oh,
a pretty good actress. But on the flip side of that, once I got out and I could be myself again, I will never forget. I was at a friend's house and she was on a Zoom call with somebody. And it was a mutual friend of ours. And I was like, oh, hey, how are you? Like, haven't seen you in a while. And I left. Well, my friend called me shortly after her call. I had already hit the road to go back home. And she called and she said, Leah just wanted to say that it was so good to see you smile again. And I just paused and I was like, how have I not been smiling? Have I not been? And she's like, no, Katie, you were like Eeyore, like with a rain cloud over your head. I didn't see that. I thought I was doing a pretty good job with everybody else, have plastered a smile on my face and advocating my heart out for agriculture. And so anyway, I'll never forget that. But so I moved out, right? Living in a friend's basement for 2 months. I was 34, 35. And I'm like, what life is this, right? Like I had this dairy farm, I had this life going for me, and now I'm living in a friend's basement. Awesome. And again, didn't tell anybody. I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, but I didn't know what else to do. I just knew that I couldn't take it anymore. So the apartment that I currently am in, and I love it here. So it's a big house with 4 different apartments. I remember it coming across my email, and I came to look at this place with the realtor, and I was only here for 10 minutes. And the voice, his voice in my head kept saying, "You can't do this. You can't do this without me. You'll never be able to live on your own, blah, blah, blah." And so I was like, "I can't do this. I'm sorry." And I left. And I put it out of my mind. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna just work my butt off and save up money so I can rent something somewhere. And the realtor called me a week later and she said, "Hey, Katie, I know you said no, but there's a waiting list for this apartment and you are at the top of the list because you have the best credit," which made me feel good, obviously. And I was like, okay. I just had this like feeling that I needed to go back and look at it. I said, well, I can't say yes right now. Can I come back and look at it? So I did. So I come up here and I'm really thinking about it. And I'm just like, you know what? If I have to live on my savings, I will. Like I had saved money throughout the years and paid off my school loans. Like I worked my butt off. So I was like, you know what? Worst case scenario, I will go waitress. I think I would be a great waitress. So I just kind of threw caution to the wind, and I haven't had to waitress, knock on wood.
But if
But
you
I
did, it'd be at some type of a Spanish or Mexican food restaurant.
either that or one of my favorites here is the Blue and Gray, which is the really good burger joint, and all of their
Ah,
burgers are named after generals in the Civil War,
oh yeah, that would be right about that too.
right?
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, almost it'll be 3 years in March. And the reason I'm still here is because of the housing market. I have not obviously been able to find anything. One in my price range. I don't need a huge house. It was just me and Mr. Mittens, but sadly, Mr. Mittens passed away two years ago. Um, so anyway, Val, that's it was a very dark time. And when I moved here, I think the biggest thing I want people to know, especially if you're on a farm, I did not, the reason I think it took me so long to leave those 3 years was because I didn't know how to live without cows. I did not, I went straight from my family farm to being a first generation farmer. I have been surrounded by cows my entire life. The only thing I knew was farming. The only thing I knew was the dairy industry. And it's like, well, what do I do? Who am I? Who am I without cows? And I will never forget when stuff started hitting the fan back in 2017. My father had called me and I had explained to him what had happened. And he said, "Well, what are you going to do, Kate?" And I said, I don't know, Dad." And he said, "Well, you're gonna have to like get a whole new identity." He said that to me because he
Oh,
knew. He knew. He was like, "Well, you're Katie Dotterer, Cow Comfort and Dairy." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. Thanks for that." So this is where I tell you too, because a lot of people get a little mad about this, but I've also had people that understand it too. I had asked my dad at that point, he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, can I come home?" When I asked that question, I was asking, can I come home to the family dairy to work a little bit to get my feet underneath me, then to decide what I want to do? I wasn't asking to go back full time at that point. Anyway, his response to me was, "Well, we're going to have to vote on it." Now, when I tell people that, they're like, "Vote on it? Your family. Why would they have to vote on it?" And what people need to understand about my family dairy is, and I'm very proud of this, they are very serious about their succession plan, about their transition plan. And when I left in 2009, I also left the succession plan, as did my oldest cousin. So that third generation at home currently is my brother and my sister and my 2 cousins. So it just happened to be the oldest of each side, me and my cousin Jennifer. We had left, so we are no longer part of that succession plan. Well, Dad called me back. They had a family meeting and called me back 2 days later and said, "I'm sorry, Kate, we voted that you nor your oldest cousin can come back." And did that hurt? Absolutely. Because at that point, I hadn't left yet. That was just at the start of everything crumbling. And here I was, like, I didn't feel like anybody wanted me, anybody loved me. Um, I'm not afraid to say this now because I hope it helps somebody and I hope it prevents somebody from doing anything. But I remember going to a conference in Chicago. It was for the Executive Women in Ag, and some other things had happened. Again, I'm not going to go into what happened, but it was a domino effect. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I remember getting on that plane and thinking, I hope this goes down. I hope it goes down because I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And that was the first time in my life that I had a suicidal thought like that. And it scared the shit out of me. And I was in counseling already then, but when I brought that to her attention, we really had to work on that. And when I tell you, like, this is actually very therapeutic to hear me talk about it right now, because I didn't realize how bad it was at that time. And for me to still hang on for 3 flipping years after that, because of the farm, I would walk the perimeter. I love walking. And I would walk the perimeter of our property. And when you get up to this hill, you could see the whole dairy. And so when I would get up there, what do I see? Is I see what I helped build. I see this beautiful freestyle barn with these beautiful Jersey cows, this team of people that had become my family over the last 10 years. How could I leave that? And I remember talking to my one good friend, the one time I took that walk and I was looking at it, and she goes, Katie, you can have a better view. There are better views than that. And I'm like, I don't know, And she was right. And even though the battlefield doesn't have cows on it, you make things what you want to make them. And I have never been happier. That first, I'm still in a transition phase. I don't want people to think that I just snap my fingers and I'm just happy go lucky. I mean, I know you see my dancing videos and things like that, but it's still been a transition period for me. You have to learn to love yourself again. You have to learn to trust people again. And you really learn about yourself. I wasn't myself, especially those 3 years, but I put everything into the dairy plus some, and I didn't have anything left for me. I was always Katie the farm. I wasn't Katie myself. So I'll stop there if you have any questions.
You're you're good. It is, and I mean, I guess that I've even learned just from getting to know you over the years, like I can see, you can still kind of, if you really know you and know what you're going through, like you can still see that it's a transitionary, and there's always going to be ups and downs for a long time to come, but just knowing that there is light, and you are definitely a much happier, healthier looking person at this point than you were. So that, to me, just as a friend, makes me really happy knowing that you're strong enough. And if we're going to get into quotes later in this episode, but God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And that's coming. I'm not a super religious person, but I truly believe in that. And it's so important to just always remember that if you're getting something thrown at you that seems like it's just the end of the world, just know that you can handle it. Like,
Yeah.
God does not give you more than you can handle, and
Yeah,
obviously he knows something that you don't.
yes,
So
I lived by that quote when I was still there, and I was like, all right, God, you must think I'm a badass because I just I don't know if I can handle much more, you know.
oh gosh, yeah. So Katie, what are some of the different things, and I kind of know the answer to this, what are some of the different things that you do in your daily life that just help you find yourself again? Because I think that coming out of a divorce and just the separation from the farm and things like that, like you said, who am I if I don't have my farm? Who am I if I don't have my cows? How did you go about finding those things that just lit a passion inside of you, things that helped you find out who you are or who you are going to be going forward? How did you go about doing stuff like that?
So one thing I want to say is I think a lot of us we're very uncomfortable being alone. And there is a huge difference between alone and lonely. I have never once felt lonely because I've actually gotten to the point where, and I love people, like I'm a very outgoing person. You've met me. I'm very, but I've also learned to enjoy being alone. And so when you're alone, and I'm talking no phone, like no phone, no technology, just sit with yourself. And it's also okay to reflect. I mean, I know that sounds super maybe cliche and super psychology terminology, whatever. But when you reflect on what you've been through, how you've gotten through it, where you are today, that is huge. And to answer your question, also, you got to feel the feels, right? And men, this goes out to you too, because you have emotions, whether you like it or not. But if you feel something coming on, you got to cry, flip and cry. Don't hide it. It's fine. We have emotions for a reason. We react. There's a reason why we react the way we do. So therapy has been very instrumental for me. So I actually started on betterhelp.com. It's amazing. It's online. You don't have to go anywhere. If you don't match right up with a therapist, you can keep trying different therapists until you find that person that connects with you. And so the therapist that I had, I was seeing her every week. And then um I am well, I actually went a whole year without seeing her. And then I was like, I need her again. You just know. You just know. And so anyway, I'm still in therapy and I do therapy every other week for an hour. And anyway, so it's therapy. It is sitting with your feelings, being okay with that, having support. When I moved to Gettysburg, I knew nobody. I did not know a soul. And I think a lot of people, I'm going to do a post on this, like, why Gettysburg? One, wasn't allowed to go home. And honestly, I don't want to go home at this point in my life. Like when I say home, that's Mill Hall, Pennsylvania. Um, there's, I just like it down here a lot more. Anyway, I started line dancing. And when people look at my videos, they're like, oh, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, 2 years. Like, really, 2 years. And it's stepping outside of that comfort zone, right? The dairy had been my comfort zone for my entire life, for 30 some years. And so you just put yourself out there. In the everybody, all of my friends group right now in Gettysburg, most of them I've met through line dancing. And they are the most supportive, welcoming people you could ask for. And then dancing, I know it's not for everybody, but for me, it's more than exercise. It's it's the way I get my stress out. It's the way I have fun. I actually just joined I'm the newest member. I'm super excited about this. I'm the newest member of the Adams County Historical Society.
Oh, the history geek is really coming out
Yes.
now, Katie.
Yes. Well, I
I
have a
love it.
long-term goal of being a licensed battlefield guide here. So I hired one
Ooh.
my first winter here. I hired one. And by the way, winter is actually one of the better times to visit Gettysburg. It's beautiful in the summer, but if you don't want the tourist traffic, winter is great because there's no lines and like all the leaves are off the tree, so you can see where like the enemy lines were and where the Confederates came in. It's very cool. So I spend a lot of time by myself on the battlefields. I try to go for a 3 mile walk every day. Like I said, I live on one of the most famous battlefields, and it's just surrounding yourself with good people, being okay to be alone, therapy, exercise. In addition to walking and dancing, I also lift 3 days a week. And it's more, it's for physical health, sure. But for me, it's more for mental. It is absolutely mental. So those are the biggest ones I can give you for getting through this. And you've got to find those people too. And so those people that have reached out to me, those complete strangers on social, I'm there to listen. I can't I tell them straight up, like, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a lawyer. I can just tell you what I've learned from my experience, and it may not work for you, but also know that you're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing. You need to know that you're not alone because we're already secluded in agriculture, right?
100%.
And we're even more secluded when we do something as, oh my gosh, a divorce. So
Yes, definitely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that experience, with everyone here. And hopefully, even if that helps, even if that helps one person make
absolutely.
a difference, that's what we're here for.
Yes.
So, all right, we're going to turn the episode into, we're going to get a little less deep for a little bit, and then we're going to go back to getting a little bit more deep again. So Katie, I'd like to ask just a couple random questions, and no pressure, but I am hoping you're going to have some really good answers because I know you've done some really fun things also over this past couple years.
Okay.
So, favorite place that you have visited, traveled to, and why?
That's really tough. I've been
I
to a lot
know.
of places now. Um, I think my all-time favorite place is St. Lucia. It's in the Caribbean. If you know me, you know I am obsessed with palm trees. I just think they're the most beautiful thing ever. and the St. Lucian people are amazing. That's number one. If I ever had $1 million, I would buy a house in St. Lucia.
Only if you invite me.
Okay.
Okay.
I can do
Twist
that.
my arm, why don't you? When did you visit St. Lucia?
Actually, I'm not gonna lie, I was, but I just fell in love with the island. And I've been to other Caribbean islands, but I'm a summer girl. Like I love summer. I love the water is crystal clear. Like, you will never catch me at Ocean City, Maryland. Nope. If I can't see my feet through the water, I ain't going. And that
Yeah,
might sound bougie, but I don't care.
I like to see the bottom of the ocean,
Yes.
not just ocean. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be a yeah, I agree. I like that crystal clear, and there's nothing like it, like just being down in the Caribbean where it's just that crystal clear. It almost looks like it's fake when
Yes.
you're like first getting used to it. And I that is a pretty cool.
Also, the bananas and pineapple. Once you have bananas and pineapple in the Caribbean, like where they're grown, you won't eat them back in the US. They're awful. I would eat just plates of pineapple.
That I could do. Bananas, I'll let you eat all the bananas you want. I'm gonna hard pass on the bananas. I'll go for the pineapple. Your this is just a fun one. Your favorite dairy product because
Ice cream. Ice cream, hands down.
Flavor.
Anything chocolate, but my current favorite right now is actually Tillamook mudslide.
Oh,
Sorry, I know you're a
yeah.
smart,
It's
but
all right.
it's so
I'll
good.
let it slide. I'll let it quote unquote slide this time, but don't let it happen again, okay? And that's just because Cabot does not make an ice cream. So,
Well, see, fair then. I live within walking distance of 4 ice cream places.
ooh,
So yeah.
yeah. Good. You can just walk. You have to walk there though.
I know. Well, yeah, but seriously, I don't know. I'm horrible with math. I'm gonna say 20 feet, not even. And I am an ice cream snob, so I didn't even mention this. In addition to the dairy farm, I also had an ice cream business
Oh
uh,
yeah.
that I had started right before I left. So when you test taste so many different flavors, and I obviously opted for the highest fat flavor because why not? Like if you're eating froyo, who are you?
Yeah,
Um,
if you're eating ice cream, you might as well go for the indulgent ice cream,
yeah,
not the cheap, not the like
yeah.
skim diet crap. Yeah, no, go all out.
There's
Agreed.
one that's it's super touristy. It's kind of a tourist trap that's right below me. And I just shake my head when I go by it because I'm just like, y'all don't know what good ice cream is. Because friends will come visit, like, you want to go here? I'm like, no, I don't. Thanks. You can,
If you
but I'm
want to
gonna
go to a
say
real ice cream place, we're gonna go down the road.
yes. Oh my
They're really
gosh.
good.
So my favorite place, we actually have to drive to. It's still in Gettysburg, but
Uh,
no, if you want ice cream, we gotta get in the car because I'm not going there.
oh my gosh, I love it. And I guess we also I'm gonna do this just because I'm setting you up.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Tea, of course tea. I hate coffee. You weirdos that drink coffee. Gross. No. Mm-mm.
But what you're not saying is that you're also a tea snob.
Very much so. Yes. You know what, Val? My favorite tea comes from a place in New York.
I'm
Where,
aware.
yeah,
And
Tarny and
next
Sons.
time you come up, you need to just like come right to my house.
Yeah, I will, because I will brew you a fantastic cup of tea because a lot of people think they don't like tea. And I'm like, no, you just don't know how to brew it because you
Oh
make
no,
it bitter.
I like tea, but I'm also not a tea snob. Like I'm fine. I don't have to get all fancy with my tea.
I do.
I know, and that's fine.
I think, darling, I'm really British at heart. And you
Yes.
can't make fun of the accent because I've got British friends and they actually rated me a 9 out of 10. So
And I
my
can't, I'm
dream.
laughing too hard. I can't respond in my accent. So
Yes,
so
you do a good one. You do a really good one.
no, but I'm laughing too hard. Give me some time. I might surprise you later.
Okay.
So spoiler alert for the week after this episode comes out. I got to interview, actually, it's the week after and then skip a week and the week after that. I got to interview two amazing girls from England. And the one of them did get to hear my accent after the podcast was done recording. And she said I did a great job. So no big deal. But anyway,
Awesome. So you'll have to join me. My it's not a dream because I'm gonna make it happen. I would love to go on a tea tour through Europe. So
oh,
you'll have to join me on that.
Okay, twist my arm. I'll go visit you in St. Lucia and I'll go on a tea tour with you. Like,
Yes.
that's fine.
Yes.
I've got all these different travel opportunities and I've got three little kids and
I was
like a
gonna say your
farm.
husband's gonna hate me.
Oh, he already hates me, I think, with my traveling and crazy schedule. But thankfully, he just sits there and rolls his eyes, shakes his head, and he's like, "Do what you gotta do. Like that's fine." Yeah, it's it's good. All right, I've got one more question for you.
Okay.
Your guilty pleasure meal
Oh, Jiminy Cricket. Wait, does
besides
it
ice
have
cream?
to be like, does it have to be a like a salt, like not dessert?
I mean, okay, how about your dinner? Because we've already talked about the dessert thing.
Okay. Steak and mac and cheese. And I'm gonna have a veggie in there somewhere. I love vegetables, but I'm actually making that tonight, steak and mac and cheese, because I can.
Are you using Cabot cheese at least?
Yes, I will say, as a previous Land O'Lakes producer, and I love Land O'Lakes, I prefer Cabot
Atta
cheese.
girl. You've heard it here on the Dairy Hour
Ah!
podcast.
Sugar.
Cabot's
Now Land O'Lakes is never gonna talk to me again.
no, they're okay. I love the people from Land O'Lakes. They're great.
But no,
But
I actually have 2 blocks of extra sharp Cabot in my fridge right now.
atta girl. They know we win the cheese awards. So like they know we're after it.
Yeah, yeah, you guys are like cheese snobs, and you should be.
Hey, we're that the New England, New York crew up here. So
Hmm.
we know all about it. So with that, I want to switch over. With this episode coming out right before New Year's, it is always a great time to get that fun inspiration, challenging inspiration, motivational inspiration, whatever you need. So Katie and I both came to the table with a few inspirational quotes, and we're going to talk about them in hopes that we can inspire you into the New Year's to be the best you that you can be, or to, do something that you've always thought, wow, I'd really like to do that, but you never thought that you could. So buckle up and get ready for some inspiration. So, Katie, I will let you go ahead and go first.
Should I start with the my favorite one, or should I save that for last?
You can start with whatever one you feel like you want to start with.
My all-time favorite one, and this is the one I looked at multiple, I had it saved on my phone, I still do. And I would look at it probably daily when I was going through what I was going through. And it is this. I'm going to say it twice because sometimes it takes a little bit to sink in. Whatever you are not changing, you are choosing. Again, whatever you are not changing, you are choosing.
Agreed. I like that one. And that can
I
apply in so many different.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what does it mean to you?
Obviously, when I was going through what I was going through, I was choosing to be miserable. I was choosing to put everything else before me. I was not choosing happiness. And when I finally chose me, things changed. They changed dramatically, obviously, but it can be the smallest change too, right? You hate your job, okay, change it. Like I'm again, through everything that I've been through, when people just want to complain about the same thing all the time, and it's like, well, you're the one that can make that change. Case in point, if I can give you a quick example, I have a really good friend, and he is just, I feel like he's working for everybody but himself, and he's depressed, he's not happy, and I'm like, well, the only person that can change that is you. And I always get back, well, no, I have to do this. I'm like, no, you don't. Nobody is holding a gun to your head saying you have to do XYZ. If you don't want to keep doing this, you don't have to. Will there be consequences sometimes to your actions? Yeah, but sometimes consequences aren't bad. Like we need to stop looking at those as super negative. The consequence for me leaving my farm is I walked away from an industry that was my entire life. But the flip side of that is I have this brand new life that I never thought was possible. I have opportunities coming at me that I never thought I'd have. So whatever you're not changing, you're choosing.
Love it. And that's so this past year in 2023, I chose to make fitness a bigger part of my life. And I found I have battled with like just like having a consistent, like just, going to the like hopping in the car and going to the gym, like the nearest Planet Fitness, and, coming up with my own workout and blah, blah, blah. It was not me. Like I'd signed up so many different times and I was always very fit, like through school and stuff. I ran a lot. And, I've always been a fairly, fit in shape person, some minor or some pretty big health problems in 2022 and whatnot. And it really made me sit there and go, okay, I really need to like get this figured out. I need to get, I had pneumonia 3 different times within the span of a year, and no one could tell me why I had pneumonia. I couldn't barely breathe. It hurt to breathe. And I said, something, I want my fitness back. And, while my body still may not look the way that I want it to look, my I found a community and a gym that which makes it nice because I think too much as it is, and nor do I have time to sit down and plan a workout to do. So this is awesome. I show up and I know when I'm going to leave. I know how long it's going to take. I show up, they tell me what to do, and we have darn fun doing it, even though we're like, dying because we're working very hard. But that 45 minutes, no matter how like, I really don't want to go to the gym, it is before I go. When I leave, I'm always happy that I took that time for me, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's helped me physically. And it's definitely, you were talking about the exercise earlier being so good mentally. It has helped me like become more focused and, just do better in general in life.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I appreciate that. So my quote first that I have is, and I can't remember, I just saw this not too long ago. And if anyone knows me, I have a lot of notepads, and I have an obsession with notepads and writing notes on them. And
If you
not,
need more, I have a whole box of them.
no,
I
no,
don't.
no. I literally, the other day I was even looking and I was like, my gosh, I have so many notepads. I was like, why do I ever need this many notepads? And I'm like, I should throw some away. And I was like, but I can't throw that one away. I like that one. Oh, but what if I need one that size? So I'm like, okay, apparently I have just a hoarding obsession of notepads, but I do use them in my defense. But I usually end up with like, 6 or 7 different checklists that not everything is done on them. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to put all these checklists, the ones that are not done, onto a new checklist on this new piece of paper. So it's fine. So anyways, this quote, I don't know where it came from, but I found it, and actually I found it sometime in the month of November. That's all I can date this paper back to. But it is come in handy. So my quote is, success isn't permanent and failure is not fatal.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
So I am also an extremely competitive person, and I don't like to lose in competitions. I'm a very gracious, I like to think of myself as a very gracious loser, but I get very bent out of shape. I pride myself in doing the best that I possibly can do. And sometimes I get a little bit, I don't know how to explain it without sounding like a real weirdo, but like I get a little bit like upset if I don't feel like people see what I think I see. So sometimes it's good to ground myself, and I do like quotes to ground myself also.
Mm-hmm.
But it is important to just remember, like, sure, if you do, get this position or this award or anything like that, if you get it, it's not permanent necessarily. There's
Right.
things that can happen that can come back and take that away from you. But if you don't get it, it's not going to kill you.
Right.
It's not the end of the world. It means that you were meant for something else, or meant for it to happen at a different time. And that is sometimes important when I want to get forcing and rushing things and just, you know, checking the boxes. Sometimes it's good to slow down and remember that, you know, you might not have had success at something that you were trying to do, but that failure is not going to kill you. It'll hopefully make you get up and try even harder the next time.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, do you have anything to say on that one?
No, well, yes. I completely agree with you about it, because it kind of goes back to I know again, it sounds cliche, but like everything happens for a reason, right? And I actually have a quote on my fridge that it's been there for almost a year. And whether you're religious or not, it's something that just spoke to me. And it says, let me think, I should go grab it, is what I should do. So I'm going to butcher it, but be so confident in God's plan that you don't get upset anymore when things don't go your way. Things
Yeah.
don't go my way. Things do not go with this business that I have that I'm still trying to build. There's some things where that's not going the way I wanted it to. And I just have to take a step back and say, okay, Katie, well, you still have your education. You still have the skill set that you have. You're going to be fine no matter what happens. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. But I really like that. Can you read your quote again, please?
Success isn't permanent and failure isn't fatal.
Yes, I love that. Like I'm struggling right now with my ESL classes. It's so much harder to teach than Spanish, believe it or not.
Yes,
And I
because
love that.
English is a crappy language to
It
learn.
so is. Oh my gosh. People ask me all the time, like, what language would you rather teach? Expecting me to say English. I'm like, Spanish, hands down. Like Spanish is the most phonetic language in the world. It's actually a very easy language to learn. English is just crap. Anyway.
We speak it, but it's crap.
Yeah, well, if you didn't grow up with it, well,
Yes.
it could be another thing, but I could give you so many examples of how messed up it is.
Oh,
But
yes, it is. I've heard them, seen them. There's some really crazy.
I love the fact that you said failure isn't fatal because I'm like, what if this fails? What if I'm putting all this time and effort into something that's going to inevitably fail? Okay, well, I have to look at it now. A different mindset is, well, you tried it. It didn't work. What can you do to either fix it or maybe we move on to something else? Maybe this wasn't meant for you. Maybe this was meant for somebody else. I don't think that right now because I'm as much as or as challenging as it is right now. I'm still trucking. Like I was actually recording videos before this podcast, so we'll see how that turns out.
You've got this.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. What's your next one?
Oh goodness, the worst someone can tell you is no. I flippin' love this one. It's super simple, but it is so true. The worst someone can tell you is no. I will never forget, excuse me. Um, Somebody wanted to buy a farm. And they're like, "Oh, well, I'll never get the loan. I'm like, "How do you know? Did you ask? Did you talk to
Did you try?
somebody?" Like, yeah. And to me, the worst someone can tell you is no. Okay, it's just a no. It's not maybe what you wanted to hear, but this goes to anybody. Like maybe you're working in a job and you want a raise. And you go to your boss and say, "Hey, I think I deserve a raise because XYZ." The worst they can tell you is no. That's the worst part, right?
Yep.
The best case scenario is you get your raise. Or it's like you hate your job so much and you want to quit and maybe you're talking to your spouse about it and the worst they can tell you is no, but maybe they're going to be supportive. Maybe they're like, okay, well you can, but we'd have to do, this. So I really live by that because it's like, well, I can ask, right? It doesn't hurt to ask. We don't live in a developing country where you might get shot for asking.
I mean, depends on what part of the city you're in.
True story, but I will say you brought up my travels earlier because I have traveled a lot since I got divorced, but I've been in countries where you dare not say anything that's on your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it just makes you appreciate what we have here in America that much more.
I know. I mean, we're not perfect. We're far from it. But every time I travel internationally and I come home, I'm actually very glad to be home. Like I'm headed to Cuba after Christmas. So
Ooh. Yeah.
people are like,
Speaking
Cuba?
of countries you better behave yourself in.
I know. It's really bad when you go to book your flight and no matter what airline you go through, there's this little disclaimer that it says, due to the frosty relations between the US and Cuba, yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I have a
Oh,
goal. I wouldn't be going if I didn't think it was at least a little it doesn't
yeah.
okay. Side note, the US isn't safe. Okay.
No.
Like no place is safe right now. And I am a firm believer that when your number is up, it is up. If my time is in Cuba, at least I will be warm and surrounded by palm trees. Okay. One time.
Bury me at the bottom of the palm trees and call it good. It's fine.
Actually, that is part of my plan. I have told my friends, listen, if I die an unexpected death, I want cremated and I want to be buried with a palm tree. So I like with a seedling. So I grow with the palm tree. Okay.
Yeah.
You hear it here, folks, because when my mom, she's not gonna like that, but we have it documented now in this podcast.
You heard it here first. He wants to become a palm tree, and that is the way it's gonna be.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Good. Yeah, I need to live by the worst thing that someone can tell you is no. That's gonna be one of my 2024, like going forward. I need to remember that.
And it should be
as I
because
continue.
you've started so many cool things in the last couple of years, and I have seen you put yourself out there, step
I'm
out of your
trying.
comfort zone. No, you're doing a great job. Like when I
Oh,
heard about your podcast, I was like, dang, Val, go get it, girl. Like, and maybe there was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, were there people that kind of poo-pooed the idea, like, oh, mate, you shouldn't do that. It's already saturated, blah, blah, blah.
well, they're like, I kind of do that in the back of my head, but I was like, well, I want to talk to people and I don't care if someone wants to listen or not. Like, I'm gonna just
Good for you.
do it and I get to chat with cool people and
Mhm.
that's how it's gonna be. So
Yeah,
that's what we did.
good.
Now, mind you, and I think I might have shared this on here before, but when it came down, I kind of had it in my head, oh, I want to start a podcast. And, you know, I had a name picked out, had a logo drawn up, and then I'm sitting there and I was like, all right, I have my date that I want to release it. Like, this is how it's going to work. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I don't even know how to do this. Like, how do I even do this? So I like put my head down one day and like did some research and I was like, okay, I could do this, this, and this. All right, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Look
I
at you.
made it work. And I only had to call my friend Krista once and be like, Krista, I cannot figure this out. Please, dear God, save me because it needs to get released. And by golly, she did help me and it got done. And I
It helps to
appreciate
have good
that
people
very
around.
much of her. So,
Good.
all right. So the last quote of the day. Now, while we were having this conversation, I may have switched what quote I was going to use
That's
because I
okay.
was like, I've got a good ending one. So this one I just shared in early December on my social media because every Thursday I share some type of an inspirational, motivational quote because that's something that really grounds me. And I love listening to quotes and, just diving into them, applying them to life, doing things like that. So this is one that was kind of going around social media quite a bit. But, and this is, of course, by the great Dolly Parton because she's Dolly Parton and she's
There
awesome.
you go.
If you see someone without a smile, give them yours. And I think that that's so important. And in a world where everything is stressful and everything is busy and everything is rushed, and, it's just life is crazy. Life is crazy for everybody, whether it be crazy for me, you, someone listening, the lady down the road. Life is crazy. But in a world where you can be anything, you should be kind. And I think that that is important. Why not smile to someone as hold the door open for them or they hold the door open for you? Is it going to kill you if you smile and say thank you? No. But is it going to make them most likely smile back and say you're welcome? Yeah. And sometimes that person, you don't know what they're going through. And I think this ties the episode together really well. But you don't necessarily know what that person is going through. And sometimes they need that smile. And
Yep.
that's so important. And I was out doing some last minute shopping yesterday and just in the hustle and bustle, and stores are so busy. And I think I helped maybe three different people throughout my however many stores that I went to. And it's so easy to take 10 seconds, help someone if you do know the answer or you can help them and just smile and say, I hope you have a good day. And that's important. And it's important to be that type of person and not just be a miserable keep to yourself kind of person because nobody likes those people, right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And sometimes it's just the smile, right? It's not, you don't have to attach anything to it, but it's sometimes just a smile. And I've done
Yep.
the same thing. One of my favorite things to do, there's a retirement community here in Gettysburg. And so my grocery store I can walk to. I know some people are like, I wouldn't want to walk to my grocery store. Well, I'm here to tell you, when you're out of milk, it's super handy. Okay.
Yeah.
And I do miss having the bulk tank. But anyway, at this grocery store, one of my favorite things to do for the senior citizens is help them load their car and then take their cart back. A lot of people don't like to take their carts back, which whatever, but it's a simple little acts of kindness. And you actually don't know the level of what it does to yourself when you are compassionate for other people, whether it's something as small as that. But you are absolutely right. You never know what somebody is going through. And for those 3 years, a lot of people didn't. When I made the divorce public, people lost their minds. They had no clue. And they're like, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, I know. Um, and I also just want to share too. Did you got to see my tattoo, right? Did you say that? And when I was in Vermont?
Oh, I don't remember.
So, well, you're not gonna be able to see it very well here, but I actually got
Oh,
it.
yep.
Yeah, that one. Um, I actually got it a year after the divorce. It says, so it's an infinity symbol, which you can call it cliche. I don't care, but I love the symbolism behind it. It means endless possibilities, endless opportunities. And then it has in Spanish, una vida, which means one life. Like you alluded to that actually just now. We only have one life to live. Make it one that you want to live and be happy. Choose again, whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. Choose to be happy. Choose things like every choice you make in this life is going to bring you to closer to where what you're supposed to be doing in life and what you were meant to be or what and meant to do. And then the other part is my favorite crop, which is wheat. And there's two things there. It's my favorite crop because it has a lot of memories harvesting wheat with my family during the summer. And it also, the wheat crop itself means prosperity. And I just knew that no matter what path I was supposed to be on, I wanted to prosper. And that doesn't always necessarily mean financial. I mean, I'm not sitting here in a lot of money. I am very rich in friends and community and just what I'm surrounded with here. I love you, but I'm super excited to go out and walk these battlefields after,
You're
after this
good.
podcast.
I don't blame you.
It's 50, it's gonna be 55 degrees here today. So
Ooh,
super
good.
stoked.
Yeah. So I think with that, and just know to anyone listening, like Katie's alluded that people have reached out to her if they were going through a hard time. You know, I may have never gone through a divorce, but you know, Katie, I think I can speak on behalf of Katie, myself. You know, if you need something, if you just need someone to talk to, please reach out to somebody, whether it be me, Katie, just somebody, maybe somebody that, you know, you just follow on social media that, you know, you connect with. Just reach out to somebody because it's, again, what's the worst they're going to say? No.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know, if you're having a hard time and need someone to talk to, this is again just a reminder, like reach out to someone. There's always someone there to lend an ear. There's always someone there to, you know, help you through whatever you need to get through. So,
I think the best part about going through something so hard, whether it's a death or a divorce or anything like that, is you and I don't know if it's just me, but I almost feel like I have a responsibility of helping those that are going through something similar. And I just think that when you go through something traumatic like that, you are now more well versed to help. Like, we're here to help other people. So if you want to reach out, please, I keep everything anonymous, confidential, because I know how that feels. If you're a hater, because I've gotten those before, just unfollow because
yeah,
I don't have time for your
there's
stuff.
the door. Knock your, yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Like,
the
I
door.
don't,
Help yourself out. Like,
yeah.
don't
I
let the
don't,
door hit you or the good Lord split you.
yep. I,
Yep,
I, I have cut so much negativity out of my life. And can I just say quick, because I don't know if you've
of
noticed,
course.
I don't I post here and there. I'll go in spurts, but I actually, I really, I just, I don't like social media anymore. I think it's a detriment. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's so much negativity on that. And I just find myself more and more pushing it away. And I don't invite it into my life anymore. Like once you have had enough of it and it traumatizes you, you're like, you know what? If I can do without it, I am. So
Yep.
I actually had some haters reach out like, oh, you're doing this and this. And I'm like, okay, thank you for your time. Do you feel better now?
I'm glad that you're paying attention to me. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Like, knock
Like, well,
yourself out.
obviously you care a little bit more than you let
Yeah,
on. So again, three sides
agreed.
to every story: his, hers, and truth, or his, hers, and God's. You choose.
Yes. So with that, Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about if people are interested in your course or where they can find you if you do feel so inclined to post on social media?
Sure. Yeah. And I did, like I said, I'm not pushing it right now because there's that black hole between Christmas and New Year's, right? So classes start January 16th. It is so much fun. I think the best part for me is having those relationships with these students. Like, I'll be at a dairy event or whatever event, and they're like, "Hey, I was in your class," which it's great. Um, my website is agvocate.com. So play on my name and being an advocate for agriculture. Agvocate.com. Instagram is the_agvocate. Bookface. I call it Bookface. I hate Facebook, but it's just Agvocate. Shoot me a message if you want to learn more. I have a crap ton of information on my website all about the classes. It's an 8-week course. Val, you took both of them.
I'm still waiting on level 3 to come out.
I know so many people are. It's so
No pressure.
one of the best feedback. Just like, I love these so much. Can you do a third one? And I'm like kind of busy with with the first two, and then trying to do, swine, poultry, and dairy, and hopefully some other industries, and then ESL. Like I've got, for being a one woman show, my dad actually told me, is like, you need to hire somebody. And I was like, I don't know if I'm there yet. Anyway, yeah, that's the best place you can get a hold of me. And there's something else I'm going to tell you. The thing about my classes, and I have to tell you, can I just tell you quick?
Of
My one
course.
big concern about my ESL courses, and I've got a lot of farmers emailing me every week about them. And my big concern is I don't want people to be like, oh, here's an English course. You just need to learn English. It's a two-way street. I just want to put that
Yeah.
out there. Like,
Yes.
every time I do post about my Spanish classes, I get some arrogant person that says, well, they're here, they should learn English. And I have to walk away before I come back and respond professionally.
Yep.
Because we've, as an industry, have been employing immigrant labor for decades. And the best that we've offered them is, here's a community college course at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that nobody's going to be able to make. And by the way, we teach touristy stuff. So
yeah, you won't actually learn what you need for your job,
yeah,
but here you go.
So my opinion on that is, if we're going to employ them, we can at least meet halfway. You can learn how to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening in Spanish. It's not that hard.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many, the best feedback. I mean, I've got, and you know this, like you take a survey at the end of my class to tell me what I did right, wrong, how to improve. But I think some of my favorite is the unsolicited feedback that comes back from students. They'll turn in their homework, which, by the way, yes, I do homework, but it's not a lot because I know you have a life. But it's the best, because it'll be like, hey, Katie, here's my homework. And by the way, this happened. And it's like this really cool story of how they started communicating with a Spanish speaker. And while their Spanish isn't perfect, they're like, now we talk and he smiles every time I come in the barn. And it's like, this is why I do this. We're putting little sentences together, as you know, by week 3. And I teach it the way I wish I would have been taught, because I would have learned so much quicker.
Yep. Agreed.
So just, if you can't tell, and get really excited and really passionate about it, because it's not just the language, it's the relationships that it's building and enhancing, really. Like it's giving me goosebumps.
Yeah. It's fun. If you have thought about taking a Spanish course, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and Katie does a good job of making sure that it's digestible and not overwhelming, and just, she keeps it fun, light and fun. And, it's nice to learn terms that do in fact relate to the farm, rather than just like, oh, I'm on vacation. Oh, where's the nearest gas station? Like, stupid stuff.
Like one of the first sentences we go over is, can you work tomorrow? Like, how often are you asking somebody, can you work a certain day? Like, come on. And my experience on a dairy, like I had a list like a mile long when I put this course together of like, hey, I say this on the daily, or like this is super helpful. And then if for some reason, like I actually just updated the milking parlor terminology. Like we go everything from pulsators to, did you know there's like 5 different ways to say milking machine, depending on where somebody is from?
Like just the basic.
Yeah.
Basic is easy for me, but yeah, it
well,
is.
And that's okay. And that's okay. As long as the, your immigrant workforce is seeing that you're trying, that you're putting an effort into it. And because I tell people, I'm like, you are not going to be fluent at the end of this, but you're going to be able to actually have a basic conversation with somebody. And that is going to speak volumes to Spanish speakers.
Yes. Agreed. So, with that, I hope you guys are inspired to make big jumps in the upcoming 2024. And Katie, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I will link all of your fun information on how to get a hold of you in the show notes if anyone is interested. I hope you all have a great, happy new year, and I hope you all have a great 2024. We will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val, or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.